I'm Kathleen from Wooden Quilts, and I've been on staff here for 1.5 years. I teach free motion quilting, which I love. Actually, 24 years ago, I took my first class at Wooden Gate, and ever since then, I've been passionate about it and building all my skills of various things. I've tried every kind of quilting. I love it all, and I'm constantly reading about it and studying it and expanding on it. It's a never-ending process. And so today I have this cute little pin cushion that I made. I created this little guy, and I made a bee because, you know, be kind, be happy, be at peace, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, this was used with Kaffe Fassett materials, and I'm going to show you how to make it. I will mention that we do have kits. If someone, you could use your own, obviously. We will have this pattern on our website under resources, so you can always find it there, and you could always rewatch this video if you need more help. We do have a kit which has all the same fabrics as in this little bee, and so that will be available also on the website or come in the store. And then these are the walnut shells that I like to put in them. They're crushed up walnut shells. It feels nice. It gives it a little weight, for one. It gives it some squishability, and when you put your pins in, they stick, and I bet you it sharpens them too at the tips just because they're crushed. One thing I'm going to point out about this little guy, I made mine where the little wings flip up because I wanted that to be like loose. But there's two ways you could do it. You could either do it where it's down to where they don't come up, or you can make those be loose. So I'll show you both ways. So to start with, we start with two 6-inch squares, a top and a bottom. And so then what you do is on the back, you put the circle, okay? On our pattern, right here, this is the pattern I put with it. So you have your circle, and you have your bee, and you have all your bee parts. And that's what we'll be talking about. So on the back of the 6-inch circle, on the back of the 6-inch square, we put a 5.5-inch circle, which then when you have a seam allowance, you want it to be centered, so you have a 1/4 inch all the way around so that you have something to stitch together. So in this case, I've cut the circle out of the 6-inch, and you can see how it fits just right to the edges, just about on the 4 points. And then this in here is a fusible interfacing, which is also included in your kit, but it's a fusible fleece. And so that you could put inside to give stability to the top in case you want to do some stitching on it. And I did on mine, I made, if you could see, I stitched all the pink parts around here. I also stitched the bee down. And when I talk about embellishments, you could do anything you want. You could stitch on here, be kind, or whatever you want to say. I did bullion knots across the actual colors that you'll have, for his little stripes, so you don't need to do those, but it just makes it more three-dimensional, and I just thought that was fun. So I made myself a template out of a piece of cardboard that was this size of the circle, and so that made it easier to draw my circle on my fabric backs and on this. When you create your interfacing in here, or actually batting it is, when you create your batting, you don't need to leave a 1/4 inch around the 5.5-inch circle, okay? This one is a 5.5-inch plus a 1/4 inch seam allowance, which is why we have a 6-inch piece of fabric. And this one we cut on the line because when you stitch them together, you don't need that extra bulk. So this way you can just stitch them together and have it just be the thin 2 pieces of fabric. So then we need to make all the little parts. And those we use something called Steam-A-Seam Light. This is a double-sided interfacing. It has paper on both sides. One side has lines on it, and the other side is just blank. And so when you're creating it on the pattern, it tells you exactly, use the side with the lines to put on the back of the fabric. So essentially what you do is you take all the pieces and you put them on the back of your fabric. So here's my bee stripes. And so I'm putting all the little stripes in a row, which came right off of this sheet right here. And I'm putting all of those little stripes on it. And then I put the steam-a-seam, which has the lined side up. So that's what I'm putting on. And then I peel the back of the steam-a-seam off, and then it sticks right to my fabric. And then when I press it with an iron, it will fuse it onto the back of it. So all you'd have to do is, press it with an iron. This one's already been fused, but just to give you the idea. And then it's on the back of the fabric. So then I cut them out. Those are a lot of little parts, so I kind of cut around the whole thing this way so that, and here's the steam-a-seam on the back. So I cut around it just so I could have it. I'm going to be cutting all those little ribs off like a rib cage. On the wings, that's the part where either you could have them be floppy wings or you could just have them fused down. If you want to fuse them down, you would just do the same way as everything else. You will put the steam-a-seam on the back side of your fabric. And so then that will allow it to be fused down, because when we peel off that piece of paper, it's sticky. And then when you put it down on your pin cushion top, then you fuse it in place and it's all stuck on. If you don't want to do the, if you want the floppy wings, then you put on the steam-a-seam on the top of your fabric, because that's the side you're going to be looking at. So what I did is put it on the top. I like the floppy wings, so I put it on the top, and then when I cut this out, then I took and I stuck the tool, see if you could see that, to the top of it, and now it's stuck on the top. But I will say, use parchment paper when you do that, because, just to press it, because otherwise you're gonna end up melting that little tulle, okay? And tulle is just like a little, gridded, like ballerina skirt material. So anyway, then after I had it on there, then I cut it apart. So the top is my little wing, and I'm cutting off the excess tulle that I don't need now before I put it all together. I tried to pre-cut part of this just so we wouldn't have so much time watching me cut. Okay, and these kind of scissors, by the way, are the best because they are micro serrated, and when you cut, it just holds right to those little spots. Love them. So anyway, now I've got the little tulle on top of my wings, but that means I don't have any tulle or any steam-a-seam on the bottom side, so it's not going to stick to my pincushion. But the body of it all holds it together. So let's talk about the next step. Okay, so you've created your pieces. So you've got your top, you've got your bottom, you've put on your batting, you've embellished it, because it's a lot easier to do it when the bee's not on there, to just like do everything. If you forget, you can still do it after the bee's on there, but until we put it together, you could do any embellishing you want on the top of your pincushion. And just to show you, you could do whatever kind of pincushion you want. This was my first little guy I made. It was with some fabric that we used to have, so we don't have it anymore, so that's why I wanted to make it with something that you could use. But then I thought, oh, how cute he'd look on a little flower, or a big flower, like a Kaffe one. Anyway, this one, I embellished it with just restitching all these little lines of the beehive. So it just gives it a little texture, and it's fun with that. And we need to, now we've made all of our little parts, and that's what all these are. Then we need to take off our steam-a-seam. So let's get our piece of paper with our picture on it. Put some parchment paper, because parchment, it doesn't stick to parchment. So put that down on top of your bee so you can see your design. We're gonna build the bee right on top of here. So as we take off this steam off the back, and you can see it just peels off like that, and now I have this tacky surface on it. So now I just start building it on my little spot. Oh wait, I want to start, because I'm doing the floppy bee. No matter what, you want to start with your wings, because that's going to be on the bottom side. So I lay those down. They're not going to stick because there's nothing to hold it there. But when I put my bee body, I'm going to wait on him also. I'll stick him to the side, because now see, if you're out of order, just stick it on this parchment and you could restart. I want to put the legs on next. So again, we just peel off. And these ones I also did when I created this. If I could just get them off. Okay, here we go. You just got to get a little spot. Sometimes you could take a pin. I'll show you that on the next piece. Anyway, so I've got the sticky little legs and his antenna and everything. So I'm going to stick that on top of my wing, on top of the picture. So I'm just building it as I see it. Okay, so talking about the pin, if you take a pin with this steam and you score it, give it a little, just scoring it like that, it makes it easier to peel. You see how it made a little like spot. So you go to a thicker spot, not those thin little legs, because you know they're little hard ones to pull it off. Got my next leg, so put him together. And I'm just mimicking the picture. Oh, can you see that? Okay?
I can see it.
Okay.
Looks great.
Then I need his body. So now I'm bringing his body over here. And that's gonna hold it all together so far. And the thing is, once you press this, it will be attached together. So make sure you're happy with how, you know, your wings are between the two. The legs are about where you want it. Okay, so once you're happy with its position, then we could go ahead and press this, okay? So I'm gonna press it, I could keep it right on here, I guess. I'm gonna press it on top of this parchment paper. So right now it's, well, other than him, he's not stuck. That's the whole key of using the parchment paper. It doesn't stick to the parchment, okay? So as you can see, I've put them in place, in position, how I like them. And then once I press it, it's permanent, okay? So you could futz around as much as you want until you press it. The wings, because I'm using the wings as being loose, I need to keep those protected. Okay, so again, I have a little piece of parchment paper. So as I press it, I'm not gonna end up melting those little wingtips. Or I won't have that, it kind of gives a little texture with that tool. So I'm just gonna press it like this, and then when I press it, all these pieces are gonna be fused together, but they're not gonna be stuck to my paper because they could peel right off of here. And you can see the wings are loose like I wanted, but you just give them a little help, and then you have your little bee. Okay, so now these are fused together, but now I need to put on his little, the yellow stripes. You don't have to put on those. You could do the bullion knots. You could do both. I did both. I first put these on, it told me where the placement was for the bullion. So again, these are the little pieces, and I am going to peel it off first. And then I'm gonna cut them apart because it's holding it for me, and nothing will happen until I fuse it. So I'll just kind of get them placed like where I wanted them, and we'll do another press.
Yeah, that's smart to keep them together instead of having all little tiny pieces.
Yeah, and sometimes using a tweezers or maybe your, you know, little tools here that we have, and put them to where I could place it better, because I just want to get them all. So now I'm going to start cutting them off of that.
Oh, I see how you do. Yeah, that's a good idea.
So now, and then when I go to do it, they're pretty much right where I want them.
Yeah.
And this is however you want it. Your little bee, you know, you create his little look how you want. Okay, and I guess I should make it a little bit more rounded here. I don't like that hanging off. So make your shapes. Okay, and this guy too. Again, it's however it looks best for you.
Yeah, very customizable, huh?
Yes. And now we're going to press it again, because I want those to stick. Now they would stick for a good while, but until you press it, it's not stuck. So you just give it a press. Okay, so now again, we've got our bee, which is going to be loose from here when I take it off. I'm just going to leave them in place for a minute and talk about the next steps to go from our embellished piece and to putting it together more. So you do what we usually do in quilting. You take right sides together, and these would be both circles at this point, because I would have cut my excess around it. Okay, right now it's a square still, but then you would stitch, you know, all the way around your circle, and then turn it inside out. Leave yourself a 2-inch opening.
Are you stitching a 1/4-inch seam?
A 1/4-inch seam, and leave your 2-inch opening, because we need to fill them up with something. Okay, but we're not ready to fill them yet. So anyway, then turn them inside out like this. I used, you know, I love this one because it's like everything, seam ripper, everything. So then you just, you know, put it inside, push your edges out, get it how you want, and then press it, because now that you got them all, then, you know, just give it a press so that you could make it be a nice circle and the edges be a little more crisp. Now you're ready to put your bee on there, and that's wherever you want him to go. So I just kind of played around with where I wanted him, and take the piece. So I kind of wanted them off center, because they kind of go for the stamen in the center of the flower and stuff. And on this one, I think we have a little bit more space over here. So I'm gonna just lay them out where I want them, and then I'm gonna press it to this. Okay, and then it's going to stay. So once you've decided, and like I said, that's how I did mine, off center. You could put them in the center. I just didn't want to cover the center of the flower. So then again, press it. We only need this when we don't want it to stick. So we're done with that. Okay, so now it's stuck on there. Okay, and you could do any other stitching on top, but now that it's as a circle and two-sided, it's, you know, it's best to do all those embellishments that you want to do beforehand. And I still have my little wings loose. So next, I take my needle and thread and get myself prepared, because once you start putting all those little crushed walnut shells inside, it gets to be hard to hold it shut, especially if you're by yourself. So I put a needle and thread so that I'm all ready to stitch it closed. And I get that just ready. Okay. Then I measure them out. I think it was 1 1/4 cups. It's on the pattern there. The best way is to have a funnel and just put it in there and fill. Okay. If you don't have a funnel, I mean, honestly, you could put it in a Ziploc bag, pull it back, cut the tip, and start pouring as you need it. So maybe we'll try it that way, because if you didn't, well, let's do the funnel just so I don't make a big mess. I also have something to catch it in, a little dish or a container of some sort. So put this in here, and I'm just gonna pour them out the top. Another way you could also do it is, you know how like if you have a pastry bag, you could put it all in the pastry bag, cut the tip, and hold it, and then you could kind of like pull it back, because once you've got it deep enough and everything, you're not going to lose it. But since I have a funnel, we'll go this way. And you do it just a bit at a time because it needs time to fill and push, and so I'm just filling it in there, and as it goes down, I'll add some more. I definitely will say be prepared on this step just because it makes life easier. And as you can see, it's starting to fill up in there. And by the way, on these, we have these that also are lavender scented. They have little pieces of lavender in it, so it smells really good too. And they're just very fine, crushed up walnut shells. Okay, keep pushing it down, and you put it to how thick you want it. How I like mine stuffed, so I keep filling it. At the end, you have to start, giving it a little help. Okay. I'll go for the last. I know this will fit. Famous last words. Making sure I'm not putting, lifting it too high that this won't, I'll be outside of my little opening. Then, we're almost there, a little bit left. Jamming it. Okay, when it's to the point at which you say, hey, I'm happy with that amount, and I am, that looks nice and stuffed. Then I take a piece of my leftover batting, like when you cut it off after you've finished your the quilting on your quilt, and you have that little strip of batting, perfect place for these little applications. I put this in here because guess what? These little shells, I don't want to be dealing with it when I'm trying to stitch it shut. So if you put some batting in there, it's a nice tip to keep your sanity.
That is a great tip. I never thought about doing that.
So now, see, they're not going to be spilling all over on me.
So smart.
And I'm going to do it this way because I go from right to left. But now my needle's in position because I'm so prepared.
Another great tip.
Yeah, so then I'm just going to hold it and do, whatever stitch. I, kind of like a applique stitch is what I use. Just to where you don't want to really see it so much. So I'm just like catching both sides. Just coming through and pulling it to where it's pretty invisible, and at the same time it's going to hold it. And I try to do them small so that I don't end up having any shells coming out, but having the batting in there, that helps that too. You could also do it on your machine, but then you're going to have this squished piece that's pressed, and I don't know, it just doesn't look as finished for me. So basically that's about it. I think you could make a bunch for your friends, for Christmas, for
Great
family,
gifts.
whatever. So I won't finish stitching it just so we don't have to hold you on here, but you could always watch it again if you missed a step or whatever. Last year I made this little guy. So I guess you could say I like pin cushions, and I like really fun pin cushions, and they kind of make me happy around my sewing space. So
now, Kathleen, where can everyone find you on your classes? Like, is it certain days that you do your classes?
well, we have probably, I'll say 4 times a year, I do a free motion quilting class, and everybody who's taken it just loved it, and it makes me feel happy that I've helped people to get to the next step of quilting. It's another whole creative endeavor. It's just like how we put together all these pieces of fabric and make it into something special that is our own. And so when you do that free motion on top, you get a custom quilt that you did everything, the whole thing by yourself. So I love to see the light bulbs go on, and then my people who have taken my class come back and show me the beautiful quilts that they've made, and I just feel so good that I've helped free someone into that. And that's really, I'm definitely someone who can help you freely get into it and not be fearful anymore, because that's how I started out, afraid to mess up my beautiful quilt that I spent a lot of time and money on, and how am I going to get to that next step of doing the whole thing myself? And sometimes we're in a hurry and we just want to send it off. Sometimes we have the time, and it's not a quick process. It definitely takes more time, just like making the quilt top did. You know, there's some quilt tops that could be quick and some that are more intricate and I'll say, you know, just custom. And those kinds of things take a little more time, but I just love it. And it's
all worth it.
Yeah, it totally is. And it just feels good to teach others how to do it. So I love teaching. So anyway.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Yes. Take care.